Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, episode 25. I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts.
And today we're going to be doing a kind of a thought experiment, I guess, about how to get the benefits of a long-term trip into a short-term trip. Kind of changing the way people think about their vacations from work. Because there is a kind of a common thought that like, oh, a 2-week vacation is... I think Tim Ferriss called it in the 4-Hour Work Week, a 2-week vacation, like TOOO, week vacation. Like you can't do anything in 2 weeks. If you're not traveling for a long time, you shouldn't even be traveling at all. And I don't think that's true. I think there's some kind of misconceptions and things that are commonly talked about. So maybe you can, without quitting your job, capture some of the benefits people talk about when they talk about doing long-term traveling.
Yeah, for sure. And we want to relate to people out there who perhaps you really like your jobs, whereas we were not so satisfied. So if you're out there sitting at your desk being like, I don't want to quit my job, but I want to do something fun. How do I get the best of both worlds? We've got you covered as well.
So to start with, let's talk about some of what we think, maybe just I think, are fallacies. And number one would be, for me, that you need... to relax, to do nothing on a 2-week vacation from work. To de-stress, you need to not do stuff. I think the idea comes from like, oh, I'm doing stuff at work. That kind of stresses me out. I don't like it. I'm going to not do stuff on my vacation because that's the opposite of doing stuff. And that'll give me vigor and energy and put me back at ease. When really, it's almost like if you take yourself out of work and put yourself into an uncomfortable crazy situation outside of your comfort zone, that can really re-energize you because it can, they get this energy of being alive and exploring something new.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I've been on both ends of it. You know, I've done the 1 week all-inclusives where it's like, you know, I've done so much school, I just need to do nothing for a week. I need to just like relax, pig out, read trashy novels, and I mean, it does decompress you, but then I've also done other things that are not that, where I've also felt relaxed and rejuvenated and alive in a different way.
Yeah, and for me, I don't think I've really, I think getting out of work for me and not really taking on a big adventure, it is like you get the work off your head a bit and can kind of breathe again, but I don't know, it doesn't really give me the force and like the drive to come back to work strong, you know, like, oh, I can tackle these problems. It's kind of like, oh God, I got to go back to work again.
Yeah, for sure. So another fallacy is, and I've heard this from people, I've said it myself, it's not worth a long flight for a short time. It's not worth it to go. I'm going to spend 2 days traveling. I don't like the actual travel part of it. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, that's super common line of thought, like with people. I'm specifically talking about Asia or somewhere like Australia. They're like, oh, if you're going to make the flight, you've got to go for a long time. And there's really no reason why that's true.
No, I mean, travel is what you make of it. It can be a really awful thing where you have to wait in security lineups and you're bored half the time. Or it can be something where, yeah, security lineups kind of suck, but maybe you have some conversation with your travel partner, or you read a book in line, or you listen to a podcast.
But that's not really
the World Wanderers podcast, maybe.
Yeah, now that you've got the World Wanderers podcast,
you're never going to be bored.
But I think the logic behind, oh, it's too long, it's not worth it, is one, super long flights take out of your travel time. If you've got to spend a day flying to Australia, there and back, those 2 days gone, and you're also going to be jet lagged, and you're going to be jet lagged for a long time. And then also price, a long flight is usually more expensive. I think with jet lag though, there's lots of kind of new research on how you can kind of get away from jet lag. And if you really want to go somewhere, there's no sort of like time equation, like, oh, it's not worth 2 days of traveling for 10 days in a place. Like, hell, if you really want to go, it's worth 2 days of traveling for 4 hours in a place.
Yeah, for sure. And then one other fallacy that we've kind of identified is that saying you can't see a bunch of stuff in the time frame that you have, so you decide not to see any of it. Can you kind of relate with that?
Yeah. So it's like, I guess the thought pattern would be, I don't want to go to Europe and just go to Holland.
It's like, I want to go to Europe and see all of Western Europe.
I'm there. I need to see all of this stuff. And I think that's kind of, there's a bit of a culture of like, oh, I've been here, I've seen this. So there's a bit of fear of going somewhere that people you know have been. Like if you go to Italy and you don't go to Rome, and then your friends are going to be like, oh, did you go to the Colosseum? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. It's also too that idea, like you're so close to something, like you might as well go there. And it's something that I've struggled with traveling. I mean, it's like we're here, like we might as well go here too. And one of my biggest things from traveling long term is take your time and slow it down, because spending one day in a place is not really getting to see somewhere. You're not really getting to know a city or getting to feel for a city in a day.
So where do you think that thought comes from? That, oh, we're close, we've got to see it. Is it like a fear of not seeing it?
Yeah, I think it's the idea that's kind of put out there where, you know, like you have to live up this experience. You might never get to do this again. You know, those sort of things that were said to me from parents, teachers, family, growing up. And it's like, oh, it's a once in a lifetime experience. Like make sure you get as much out of it as you can. And I mean, that can be taken many different ways, and perhaps people intend it as in like really be in the moment with where you are. Or like, to me, it's kind of like, oh, let's see as much as I can see then. Let's like pack my days with as much as I can do, and pack my week with as many places as I can get to, as opposed to just like staying put and just really like getting to know, learning about, being a part of one place.
Yeah, and not being like kind of confident in your ability to just enjoy the journey and the passing of time. Like you want to collect destinations instead of just kind of not collecting anything, because there's nothing to collect. Like you can't collect a city.
Yeah, no, that's a really great way to put it.
I had a thought and now it's kind of like slipped off the top of my head. But, so we were talking about, a way to think about this is if you had a trip, like you've always wanted to go on this 3-month Europe trip, but you don't have 3 months, you've only got 2 weeks. So instead of trying to pack a whole bunch of stuff into 2 weeks, maybe just pick a slice of a longer trip. And I think it's kind of a hard thing to do, to say like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just going to go like fly into Barcelona, cruise down to Valencia, go back to Barcelona and leave, or something like that. You want to see all these places. You want to do Spain.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a bit more than just that in 2 weeks if you want. Like you could spend 4 days in each place and do 3 different places. Like maybe you do Barcelona, Granada, Sevilla, and take a train straight back to Barcelona, for example. Or I think like one country is a good thing to stick to.
But I think, so what I was kind of getting at before is like you feel this urge to do something. Like we kind of talked about like collect this place. Like, oh, I want to tick Spain off my list. What do I want to accomplish with my 2-week vacation? Oh, I want to check off Spain. I've done it. But like Spain is nothing but like an arbitrary line on a map controlled by some people in funny costumes with guns. You can do, there's no collecting that country, you know?
Yeah.
So you should just be trying to, a good way to think about it, I think, is if you spread out, like if you had all the time in the world, what would you do? And then just take 2 weeks of that time and do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely a hard thing to do, but I think it's better than it's better than not seeing anything, I think, or not doing anything. Like you get 3 weeks of vacation at work. Take a week off for Christmas and take 2 weeks and treat yourself to somewhere you've always wanted to go.
But because
if you keep waiting for that like long trip, like that may never happen.
But do you agree with my point about kind of like picking a slice?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sorry. I was trying to add on to that. And that's what I was getting at. Like pick a slice of what you've always dreamed of seeing. Like pick one place, one country. And then, you know, within a country, narrow down. I've wanted to see this, this, and this. What's realistic for me to see in 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. And to really be able to see it.
Yeah.
Because a different city every day is not, like you are going to come back. You're going to come back tired, exhausted, and you're probably not going to be very fulfilled because you've rushed around.
Yeah, but that's, I think, a bit of a fallacy. Not a fallacy, I guess, but it's really like pushed this idea that like, oh, you can't see Amsterdam in one day, or you can't see this Paris, you need 4 days, you need a certain amount of time, or you need more time, because it always seems like there's always someone who tells you need more time.
True.
Or you can't see Australia in a month, you need 6 months. And then there's going to be one person, you need, like, realistically, to get to know something super well, you need a massive amount of time. But what you're looking for isn't to get to know something super well. What you're looking for is to get to know yourself better, to kind of re-energize yourself, to challenge yourself, throw yourself out of your comfort zone, and kind of grow in new ways. So I think one of the things about going place to place that's good is that it's a bit turbulent. You are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Like if I'm going for somewhere for 2 weeks, I'm going to move, it's going to be new, and then I'm going to kind of adjust. Whereas if 4 or 5 days, I move again, it's a little bit turbulent, things are crazy. Especially if you're going to like Central America, Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. Transportation is one of the most uncomfortable aspects of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's one of the growth aspects, something where you can really get a lot out of it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point to make. Another benefit is that when you're seeing something for the first time, you see it with a greater depth. That's your words. I just stole them.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on sort of what you meant?
Yeah, so that idea is kind of what I was talking about. But when you're outside of your comfort zone, seeing something for the first time, you're really seeing it. You're looking at it and you're kind of like analyzing it. Versus when you've seen, like, for example, the best way to think about this is when you went on a trip somewhere and like pick a monument you saw, maybe the Eiffel Tower, maybe Colosseum, versus your drive to work.
Yeah.
Your drive to work, you don't even think about seeing stuff. And it's not...
I have to be very conscious to think about the mountains that I see every day. And when I do think about it, I'm like, wow.
But it's not just that. Like, there are landmarks that are similar. Mm-hmm. But there's also an epic amount of changes happening on the kind of lower level. Like, the pedestrians you're passing, what are they doing? Other cars. Like, there's all this other stuff that's going on that you're not really paying attention to because you're on autopilot. You've done this so many times that your brain kind of builds a shortcut between you and work, and even at work. You build this shortcut, so it's kind of like it happens in almost an unconscious level. So if you see something, go somewhere new, you're kind of really like seeing things with greater depth. And then you can kind of bring that feeling of like truly seeing something, consciously looking, and it kind of transitions back into your everyday life.
Yeah, I think that's completely, you worded that beautifully. You're making me want to take a 2-week trip somewhere.
Yeah. So what are the things you want to look for when you're thinking about, I'm going to take a 2-week, we've termed it micro-backpacking trip?
I think one thing that is something that a lot of people look for, and something that I actually really like, is to move south, because you don't have to go somewhere like Central South America, maybe even Mexico, because you don't have that jet lag. So go north, south, look for similar time zones. Yeah. Sorry, south of go from north. For those of you who aren't on top of the world, they're like, what?
Australians are like, where can we go?
What is she talking about? The middle of the ocean? No, sorry. To word that better is to kind of stick in the same time zones as yourself. For me, I've done small trips to 2-week vacations, 2-week micro backpacking trips over to Europe, like Wales, the UK, as well as then down to South America. And South America was a lot easier on my body.
Yeah, it's weird because I think there's kind of like this mental bridge, maybe this is just me, but like between South America and North America, as if it's some like great thing. But like Colombia is hardly any farther away than Mexico.
No.
And it's like kind of, Mexico's got a ton of stuff to offer too, and I want to talk about it a bit later, but you can do like small vacations to South America. You don't need to go backpacking for 6 months. You could go check out Colombia, check out Peru like you did.
I think we're getting into our possible destinations section.
Yeah. But the one thing that we kind of didn't touch, like what specifically to be looking for, I think number one on that list is something that's going to make you uncomfortable, something outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I think the idea of that is really scary because you're like, oh, I only have 2 weeks vacation in a year. Do I really want to do something that makes me uncomfortable? I kind of just want to do something that's easy. There's so much personal gratification from overcoming like a personal challenge or doing something that scares you or pushes you out of your comfort zone in a small way. Maybe there's a little bit of stress involved at the time, but afterwards you have so much personal gratification, so much pride in yourself.
Yeah. And
it's really that feeling like I can do anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You building self-esteem by knocking it off a challenge. And those challenges are really plentiful and available in traveling. And so you can make kind of a mini project out of like a language learning thing. For example, like, I'm going to spend a bit of time before I go learning Spanish, and then I'm going to cruise down somewhere, and it's only 2 weeks, sure, but learning a language, people frame it as like, oh, if I'm not going to use it, it's not worth it. So it's not worth my time to learn a language for 2 weeks.
It's always worth your time to learn something new. It's something that I've had to push through, and I still do have to be very conscious of it.
Yeah, and I say that not as if some abstract other people think that. Like, I personally have used that logic on myself. Like, I'm not going to sit down and learn this language because it's not worth it. But if you learn a language and then go down somewhere and can apply it, you see those results and you think, wow, I'm actually pretty awesome. And you kind of feel like this, I can learn things and I can apply them. I can learn and I can grow. And you can get into this kind of growth mentality where you don't view challenges as things that are obstacles. You don't view obstacles as things that stand in your way, but rather things that you climb over that make you better on the way you're going. Yeah,
for sure. And another option with that is something that physically challenges you. Perhaps it's like trekking somewhere. Perhaps it's like a camping trek. Maybe you go to Nepal and do a 10-day trek. Maybe you go down to South America and trek somewhere.
Yeah, that's one of the things you made a note of on what to look for. Something to challenge you, not only mentally, but physically as well. Trekking is a great option for that.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So would you say are some of the places that you would recommend to people who are looking for a micro-backpacking trip?
So it's not somewhere I've been. I've never been to Mexico, but I feel like Mexico would be a cool adventure to do. If you just like flew into Mexico City for 2 weeks and kind of, I don't know, went out and kind of just got into like the actual flavor of things.
I think somewhere that would be cool in Mexico, and I've done this in resort style, is to go to the Mayan Riviera, like the east, and to do more of like hostel or homestay or Airbnb style, to see like the temples of Chichen Itza, maybe to go over to Cozumel. There's amazing snorkeling there, absolutely amazing diving, I've heard. I didn't dive at the time, but the snorkeling was incredible. That little island, like you could just hang out in hammocks all day, go snorkeling, practice some yoga. Like you could totally decompress there.
But also pushing you out of your comfort zone?
Yeah. Staying on a little island with no Wi-Fi. Maybe you do some diving. You've never done that before.
Yeah. But so for me, I'm thinking of like, I guess my kind of bias is to look for more chaotic situations, which isn't like that. Like that's a good point you're making, that you can push yourself out of your comfort zone in a non-chaotic situation by scuba diving. I thought a yoga retreat is a great kind of personal growth adventure to take with your 2 weeks of vacation time. Especially if you do it somewhere that makes you like, if you go to Central America and you kind of got to navigate a bit of sketchiness to get to your yoga retreat, and then you kind of do that. And then
one thing for me is like, I think Mexico City would be definitely a great thing, but I think I would pair that with something else because I don't personally love just being in a city. So I think like a week is good for me in Mexico City. I don't want to spend 2 weeks there. So I'd love to do something else that pushed me. Yeah. Not everybody practices yoga as much as you and I do. So that could be really outside of somebody's comfort zone.
Yeah. And I wasn't like go sit in Mexico City for 2 weeks, but fly there and then try to find somewhere cool to go around there. Ooh. One of the things that this is a place we've both been and both fell in love with, but Colombia, I think, would be an amazing destination for a short vacation in terms of getting outside of your comfort zone. You can also find cool physical stuff. You can find relaxation. And it's really close, especially if you live in the States, like it's cheap and close to get to. And even same for Canada in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's on that same time zone, so you're not going to get that jet lag, Mexico and Colombia. And yeah, I actually had Colombia on my list too. We did lists separately and we both had Colombia. I think northern Colombia, it's hot there. It's right by the equator. They always have beautiful temperature. So for me, my thought process in this is, if people are looking for that winter getaway, if you're from Canada and you are so sick of the snow and the short days and the freezing cold weather, you don't have to just go to Mexico and lie by the beach and do all inclusive. You could do other things. And something that is another option for people who really do want to tick those countries off and are struggling with the idea of not doing a lot of destinations is go down to northern Colombia for a week and sail through the San Blas Islands.
Yep.
San Blas Islands in the Caribbean, which are apparently some of the most beautiful little beach paradises in the world, over to Panama and chill there for a week.
How long is it San Blas trip?
Like 3 or 4 days.
From Panama City?
Yeah, from Panama City to Cartagena.
Could you do like Panama City to Bogota in 2 weeks?
I think you definitely could.
Panama City, Cartagena. I guess you could skip Medellin. We're both in love with it. I think like one cool trip I'm picturing is like flying to Bogota, do a couple days there, Medellin, Salento. You could probably do Cali and then back to Bogota.
Yeah, so lots of different options within one single country, just depending on what you like to do and what you're looking for.
And it's not like from Toronto, I think it's a 5-hour flight. From Miami,
cheap.
It's like 2 hours, and it costs like, they'll basically send you to Colombia for free from Miami if you're in the States.
Yeah, no, for sure. Another place that I wrote down, since I did do this as a 2-week trip, was to Peru. Machu Picchu is one of those world-renowned, world-famous destinations. And I think that people should go see Machu Picchu, and you can do Peru in 2 weeks. No, you cannot see everything in Peru, but you can fly into Lima. You can spend a few days eating some good food.
Ceviche.
Yeah, hanging out in Lima. You can cruise on over to Cusco. When I was down there, I did actually 4 days in the jungle right outside of Cusco and then back to Lima.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it earlier. So we've been talking about the benefits of South America being a little bit closer than people really give it credit for. But the fallacy we're talking about, a long way, it's not worth it to go a long way for a short amount of time. And I think that's not really a good idea to give consideration to. Like, if you are like, what would be cool to go check out India. And you're like, it's a really far way away. Like, who cares? Like, it's 2014. We have this beautiful thing called air travel. It's accessible. You can fly to India and it takes you like 18 hours. Like 50 years ago, it would have taken you like 7 weeks to get there or something.
At least.
So like you can go to, like, if we really wanted to, we could be in India tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is pretty spectacular. And then you'd have tons of time to do cool stuff. Maybe you've got to overcome jet lag. Maybe you're going to be having diarrhea the entire time you're in India. But like that's...
Yeah, and I think there's actually, I haven't been there, but there's a route called like the Golden Triangle, I think it is. It's pretty popular with tourists in India, and I think it kind of hits like Taj Mahal, maybe Delhi, and Goa. And Goa is a huge beach destination. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You could practice some yoga, eat some good food.
Yeah, but
I think Thailand too.
Thailand would be awesome.
Thailand, you
Bali,
could do
whatever.
Yeah, Bali for sure, 2 weeks.
Because people bog themselves down in these. They limit the options they have available to them in these kind of ridiculous thoughts, like things they're afraid of. And this idea of, it's too far away, I can't go there for such a short period of time. And just another one of those things. Like, I've got to work this job because I won't be able to live how I want to live if I don't. Lots of people spend lots of time being afraid of things. There's no reason to be afraid of.
I think something too that's great about the idea of a micro backpacking trip is perhaps going by yourself is something that really scares you. And if that's you, I feel you. Like that's something that terrifies me and something that I am planning to overcome at some point. Doing 2 weeks by yourself is a great way to get a taste for that sort of thing. And, you know, in 2 weeks, you don't need to take a lot of valuables. You don't need to bring a laptop. So if having your stuff stolen is a reason that you're not doing it, leave your valuables at home because you don't really need them for 2 weeks. You know, you're not gone for a huge amount of time. You know, you'll be okay. So, you know, you'll be okay. You're not going to, if you have a dog or a husband or a wife or children, like you can go for 2 weeks. It's not forever. It's a small period of time and it's a great way to just, you know, test your limits.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Traveling by yourself is a major growth opportunity, and it's a perfect way to do if you're looking for growth. And that's really the point of micro backpacking versus vacationing, like trying to make it more growth oriented. Going somewhere by yourself for 2 weeks, like you can learn a ton and grow a ton and really make some positive changes to your life. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, for sure. A few other destinations that I think would be really good. We talked about the Greek islands in our last podcast. I think that would be an amazing 2 week vacation. You could do Kentucky like we did, or you could do it on your own. I think that would be amazing. I haven't been to Turkey or Croatia, but they're pretty top on my list. And I think both those places would be really good micro backpacking trips. Just focusing in on like Croatia or Turkey, not both. At the same time, the list I made is mostly South America. If South America is something that scares you, but you're kind of intrigued by it, you know, doing Machu Picchu, seeing a bit of Peru, doing the Galapagos Islands and seeing some Ecuador, going to Rio in Brazil and then kind of seeing the areas around there. There's lots of really cool sort of beachy getaways just outside of the city. And you could definitely do a week in Rio at minimum and then get outside and just hang by the beach for a few days.
Yeah, I think when we were in Brazil, we talked about Brazil being a good shorter trip spot.
And if you're one of those people who really, when you go on a trip, you like to see a lot, Brazil is probably your city because there's so much stuff, or Rio is probably your city because there's so much stuff to see in that city. It is such a cool city. You could jam pack a week with activities to do, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. Goodbye, vacationing. Hello, micro backpacking.
Death to the vacation.
Okay, and show notes?
No show notes for this episode. Yeah, check out our show notes at www.theworldwanderers.com. Shoot us an email if you have any feedback, questions, comments, anything you want to hear about at theworldwandererspodcast@gmail.com. Okay. Thanks for listening. Bye.